Hi, everybody. Paul Sawyer with the High School Theater Spotlight, taking a few minutes here to talk to Stephan Smith Collins. How you doing?
I am great, thank you. How are you?
I'm doing very well. Thanks for taking the time with us today. Uh,
Absolutely.
Yet another entry into our looking with performing arts professionals. Now, full disclosure, so that it doesn't come out later, Stephan and I have performed together. We were talking about this. It has been 10 years. We did You're in Town at San Jose Stage Company.
That actually has to be one of the most fun shows I've ever done in my life. Great material, phenomenal house, great venue, and the cast couldn't be beat.
Oh, we had the kind of people that I think the company was saying, this is like all-stars. This is, if
Yeah,
we could pull together the fun people to work with in the Bay Area.
totally fun.
It
Yeah,
was such a blast. That was one that was so sad to close.
right. And an amazingly talented cast, too.
Um, so what we want to look at here is actually we're going to take it back to the past here. As much as that pains us sometimes, but if I were to make it so simple as to say, how did you get started in performing? Where's the genesis moment?
Well, it was interestingly, it was in high school. It was my freshman year of high school. My older brother, Matthew, was cast as Patrick Dennis in Maine, and they were looking for an actor to play the younger Patrick Dennis. He was the older, if you've ever seen Maine, there's the young one and then he grows up. So I was asked by the director to audition because what better person to play the younger version of an older character than the actor's little brother? So I auditioned and I didn't get it. He cast Frank Salerno. I mean, and if Frank Salerno ever runs across this, I'm still angry at that. But I went to see the show. Frank was amazing. My brother was amazing, and that gave me the bug. My competitive edge came back, and I'm like, I'm going to audition for the next musical, and I'm going to get cast, and I did.
Do you remember what that musical was?
I do. It was Kismet, and I got one singing line and one dialogue line, and I frigging knocked them both out of the park night after night. And interestingly enough, my big brother was the lead in that one as well. So
Does your brother still perform?
he does, yeah. He's actually quite accomplished. He also went to Northwestern. He got his Master's of Fine Arts at Yale. He sang with the Santa Fe Opera Company. He played Raoul in Phantom of the Opera on Broadway. He was in the original Broadway cast of Titanic. He's done several national tours, and he's now performing in the Chicago area.
Very nice. Now, yourself, you went to Northwestern. What did you study when you were in college?
Well, I started in the School of Music, studying classical voice and vocal performance. And after 2 quarters, it's on a quarter system versus semesters, I got the feeling that I did not want to be a starving artist. And as long as I was at one of the preeminent business schools, I decided that, I'm going to get a business degree. So I ended up getting an undergraduate business degree from Northwestern. And I figured, I could always come back and perform. And so, yeah, that's what I studied.
And, well, heading back to your high school, as you said, it was St. Charles High, right?
Yep.
Do you remember your theater teacher from back then?
My God, of course. What theater geek could ever forget their high school drama teacher? Ron Keppel. Yeah.
Tell us about him.
Yeah, Ron Keppel was just this gigantic force. He's still around, God bless him. We're Facebook friends. I don't know. I mean, we got really lucky. Where I grew up, the Norris family, they happen to be the money behind like Texaco Oil. They sunk so much money into I shouldn't say it, that they donated so much money to both St. Charles St. Charles High School as well as Northwestern, where their children went. That in our high school we had a professionally brand new state-of-the-art performing arts venue. I mean, like hydraulically raised and lowered orchestra pits, just got so lucky, and Ron Keppel made the most of it, made the most out of the budget, and made the most of the time that he had. The majority of the work that he did with me while I was in high school was trying to manage my ego. I don't know how successful he would say he was at that particular task back then. But I certainly look back and I realize how fortunate I was to have had access to that kind of performing arts venue and somebody who was just so passionate about shaping and molding young artists.
Well, the beauty of social networking, he might have the opportunity to give you a response to your ego check question.
Yes. Several times he has reminded me what a nightmare I was in high school, and I gave it to him. You know, I mean, those are, like, I don't know. I mean, if you have a competitive spirit, you go for the lead. If you don't get the lead, you're upset. And, you know, I mean, now that you're a fully developed person, or at least hope to be, you add and you realize your chances of getting, you know, the lead every time are, you know, not exactly with you all the time. But anyway, in high school, it's a different story.
Yes. So when you look back at your high school experiences, were there any things that you learned back then that have been kind of foundational or core to the way you approach your work now as a professional actor and performer?
Oh yeah, absolutely. You know, because the wonderful thing about Los Angeles is the sense of community that so many people here are involved with the business, as they call it. And what's so amazing is that, you know, I'm so lucky that I have agents and managers that I like, trust, and respect, but I also have this phenomenal network and you know, close personal friends who are also struggling artists, and we understand each other. And so many of the conversations that happen now in you know, audition waiting rooms or green rooms or coffee houses could be the exact verbatim conversations we used to have in the music wing at the high school. You know, who's going to get cast, who shouldn't get cast, who should get cast, who lost out on this role. You know, it's just the sense of community around artists that at least, you know, was first introduced to me in high school still exists today, and I don't think I could survive this business without that.
Mm-hmm. Now, it's funny you mentioned the whole thing about community, because we always try to impress upon our high school students the idea that theater is a very small community, and I bet students would wag a finger and say, "Oh, when I get to LA, I'll be one of hundreds of thousands." I've heard that that's not true. Is that the case? Everybody still knows everybody.
Yeah, oh, absolutely. I mean, regardless of how many people are in Los Angeles, it is very much a small town, because you tend to run up against a lot people in Los Angeles, at least for film and TV and for theater as well. You wind up categorized into your type, and you see the other performers who are categorized in your same type so often at the same auditions, at the same callbacks, on the same sets, and you foster this community that's really not so much about the competition. You know, if you stem from a sense of community, that's what you tend to foster back into your life. So yeah, I mean, it is definitely very much a small town, and you like, a great lesson to learn is you have to be careful what you say about anyone, because you never know who's listening.
Did you hear that, everybody? Did you catch that?
You have to be careful what you say about anyone, because you never know who's listening.
So what's been kind of your favorite, either on set, be it theater, be it film, be it industrial, something that to this day pops into mind as a really enjoyable project you got to work on?
Well, I can say, in terms of all of the projects, in terms of performing, Los Angeles film and TV is I believe that your students will come to learn this, later on in life if they study acting in college or if they go to film school. Performances in film and TV are created in the editing bay, really, as opposed to theater where an actor's performance and of itself embodied into that actor in that moment. And I don't think that feeling can be replicated on a set when you have several different setups and you shoot every scene at least twice to get the different points of view of the actors performing. So if there was a gun to my head and I had to say what is my favorite mode of performing, it would be theater. Mm-hmm. And if there was one particular project I enjoyed more than any other, I would have to say it was Beach Blanket Babylon.
Up in San Francisco.
I did Beach Blanket Babylon for almost 2 years, and every single night was another opportunity to have a frickin' blast on stage. And interestingly enough, when I was 11 years old, my parents, my entire family, took to San Francisco, and I saw Beach Blanket Babylon when I was 11. And then all those years later, I just happened to be living in San Francisco, and I just happened to audition for Beach Blanket Babylon. I just happened to get cast, and almost every night while I was on stage, I would look at the seats that I sat in as an 11-year-old viewer, and my heart would just soar.
That's incredible.
Isn't that amazing? I mean, I got so lucky with that. But talk about a sense of community. The people who, there are still cast members performing with Beach Blanket Babylon that were performing when I was 11. They're still with the show, both on the creative team and actually the performers. And
the mind blow of being able to get on stage with those people, that had to be incredible.
Incredible. Absolutely outrageously incredible. And they're the nicest, most down-to-earth, fun-loving performers in the world. I mean, to do a show like Beach Blanket Babylon for 30 years, it has to be a labor of love, and it is. It really is.